Ethan Hayes watched the snow drift down past the panoramic windows of his penthouse office in Hayes Tower, the glowing digits on his desk clock showing 11:47 p.m. But the young billionaire had no intention of heading home. At 32, lonely nights at the office were a familiar rhythm, a discipline that had helped him skyrocket the fortune his parents left him in just 5 years. His blue eyes mirrored the glittering lights of Chicago as he rubbed his temples, fighting off a wave of exhaustion. The latest financial analysis remained open on his laptop, its words beginning to swim before his eyes. He knew he needed fresh air. He grabbed his fine Italian cashmere overcoat and descended to the private garage where his Aston Martin awaited. The night was bitterly cold, even for a Chicago December. The car's thermometer registered a harsh 23°, with forecasts predicting a further plunge into the early morning hours. Ethan drove without a destination for a few minutes, the engine's deep, soft purr a balm to his frayed nerves. His thoughts drifted between spreadsheets, market projections, and the pervasive loneliness that had become his constant companion. Evelyn Reed, his housekeeper of more than a decade, was always gently insisting he needed to open up to Elle, as she put it. But after the spectacular failure of his last relationship with Brittany, a socialite whose only real interest was his net worth, Ethan had thrown himself completely into his work. Without consciously steering, he found himself near Lincoln Park. At this hour, the vast expanse was utterly deserted, save for a handful of city workers toiling under the buttery glow of the lampposts. The snow continued its silent, heavy descent, creating a dreamlike, almost surreal landscape. "Maybe a walk will help," he muttered to himself, parking the vehicle. The frigid air bit at his face like 1,000 tiny needles as he stepped out, his fine Italian leather shoes sinking into the pristine snow as he walked the park's pathways, leaving behind footprints that were almost instantly erased by new flakes. The silence was profound, broken only by the soft crunch of his own footsteps. That's when he heard it. At first he dismissed it as the wind, but then it came again, a faint, almost imperceptible sound that put all his senses on high alert. Crying. Ethan froze, trying to pinpoint its origin. It repeated, a little clearer this time, seeming to emanate from the playground area. His heart began to pound as he moved cautiously toward it. The playground was a winter sculpture garden, the swings and slides transformed into ghostly shapes under the diffused light. The crying grew more distinct, coming from behind a cluster of snow-laden bushes. Ethan rounded the foliage, and his heart nearly stopped. There, half buried by the relentless snowfall, was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6, clad in a thin coat woefully inadequate for the weather. But the most shocking part was what she was clutching tightly to her chest. 2 small, swaddled bundles. Babies. "My God," he exclaimed, dropping to his knees in the snow. The girl was unconscious, her lips a terrifying shade of blue. With trembling fingers, he felt for her pulse. It was faint, but it was there. The babies, disturbed by the movement, began to wail louder. Wasting no more time, Ethan stripped off his own overcoat and wrapped it around all 3 children. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped it. "Dr. Thompson, I know it's late, but it's an emergency." His voice was tense but controlled. "I need you to come to my estate immediately." "No, it's not for me. I found 3 children in the park. 1 is unconscious." "Yes, right now." Next, he called Evelyn, still amazed after all these years at her uncanny ability to answer on the first ring, regardless of the hour. "Evelyn, I need you to prepare 3 warm rooms immediately and set aside clean clothes." "No, they're not for visitors. I'm bringing 3 children, a girl about 6 and 2 babies." "Yes, you heard correctly. I'll explain when I arrive." "And Evelyn, also call that nurse who took care of me when I broke my arm, Mrs. Davies." Very carefully, Ethan lifted the small, cold huddle into his arms. The girl was alarmingly light, and the babies, who appeared to be twins, couldn't have been more than 6 months old. He made it back to his car, grateful he'd opted for a model with a spacious back seat. He cranked the heater to full blast and drove as fast as the icy conditions would permit toward his estate on the outskirts of the city. Every few seconds, he glanced in the rearview mirror at his precious cargo. The babies had quieted slightly, but the girl remained limp and unresponsive. His mind was a maelstrom of questions. How did these children end up there? Where were their parents? Why was a child so young alone with 2 infants on a night like this? Something was terribly, horribly wrong with this picture. The Hayes estate was an imposing Georgian-style structure, a sprawling 3 floors covering over 20,000 square feet. As Ethan passed through the wrought iron gates, he saw the house was already aglow with lights. Evelyn waited at the main entrance, her gray hair pulled back in its customary bun, a robe thrown over her nightgown. "Good heavens," she exclaimed, seeing Ethan carry the children inside. "I found them in Lincoln Park," he explained quickly as he entered. "Are the rooms ready?" "Yes, I prepared the pink suite and the 2 adjacent rooms on the 2nd floor. Mrs. Davies is on her way." Ethan ascended the marble staircase with Evelyn at his heels. The pink suite, so named for its soft rose and cream decor, was one of the most comfortable rooms in the estate. He gently laid the girl on the large canopy bed while Evelyn took the babies. "I'll give these little ones a warm bath," the housekeeper stated, her years of experience evident in her calm, confident handling of the infants. "Is the doctor arriving soon?" "Yes, he should be." The chime of the doorbell cut him off. That must be him now. Dr. Thompson was a man in his 60s, the Hayes family physician since Ethan was a boy. Despite the late hour and the urgent summons, he was impeccably dressed in his gray suit. "Where are the patients?" he asked, already opening his medical bag. Ethan led him to the pink suite, where the girl was still unconscious. The doctor conducted a thorough examination, checking her vital signs and temperature. Mild hypothermia, he diagnosed. She was lucky. Another few hours in that cold. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Ethan understood the grim implication. Mrs. Davies arrived shortly after, a stout, middle-aged nurse with a kind smile. Together with Evelyn, she attended to the twins, who, remarkably, were in better condition than the older girl. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Thompson commented after examining the babies as well. "They're only slightly chilled. The girl must have used her own body to protect them from the cold. A remarkable act of courage for someone so young." Ethan felt a knot form in his throat. What could have driven a child to such a desperate, brave act? The subsequent hours passed in a slow-motion blur. Mrs. Davies remained with the twins in the adjoining room where Evelyn had set up 2 makeshift cribs. Ethan refused to leave the little girl's side, watching her pale face as she slept. There was something about her that awakened a protective instinct in him he'd never experienced before. Around 3 a.m., she began to stir, her movements slight at first, her eyelids fluttering. Then suddenly, her eyes flew open, deep green, and wide with terror. She tried to sit up abruptly, but Ethan gently restrained her. "Easy, little one," he said softly. "You're safe now." "The babies!" she cried out, her voice raspy with panic. "Where are Olivia and Noah?" Ethan was surprised she knew their names. "They're fine," he assured her quickly. "They're sleeping in the next room. My housekeeper and a nurse are taking care of them." The girl seemed to relax slightly at this, but her eyes remained fearful as she scanned the opulent room. The soft pink walls, the elegant furniture, and the silk curtains seemed to disorient her further. Where am I?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. "You're in my house," Ethan replied kindly. "My name is Ethan Hayes. I found you and the babies in the park. You passed out in the snow." He paused, choosing his next words with care. "Can you tell me your name?" She hesitated, biting her lower lip, her eyes darting towards the door as if assessing an escape route. "It's okay," Ethan assured her. "No one here will hurt you. We just want to help." "Chloe," she finally whispered, so softly Ethan almost missed it. "That's a very pretty name, Chloe," he smiled, trying to sound reassuring. "How old are you?" "6, she replied, still hesitant. "And the babies, Olivia and Noah, right? Are they your siblings?" Mentioning the babies seemed to reignite Chloe's panic. "I need to see them," she exclaimed, again trying to get up. "Calm down, they're fine." Ethan gently held her shoulders. "But you have to tell me what happened, Chloe. Where are your parents?" The girl's face twisted in pure terror, a look that made Ethan's blood run cold. "I can't go back," she exclaimed, grabbing his arm with surprising strength. "He'll hurt them again. The bad father. Please, don't let him get the babies." Evelyn, who had just entered the room carrying a tray with hot chocolate, exchanged a worried glance with Ethan. "No one will hurt you here, Chloe," Ethan promised, taking her trembling hand in his. "You're safe now. You all are." Chloe began to cry, silent, fat tears rolling down her pale cheeks. Evelyn placed the tray on the bedside table and approached with a handkerchief. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "you must be hungry. How about some hot chocolate? Then you can see the babies. I promise." The mention of food seemed to stir something in Chloe. Her stomach rumbled loudly, and she blushed. It's been a while since I ate," she admitted shyly. Ethan felt a surge of anger. How long had this child been without a proper meal? "Evelyn, could you also bring something light for her to eat? Maybe some soup?" "Of course, I'll be right back," the housekeeper replied, giving Chloe a motherly glance before she left. As Chloe sipped the hot chocolate in small, careful gulps, Ethan watched her closely. Now that she was awake, he noticed subtle details he'd missed before. There were faint yellowing bruises on her arms, visible beneath the borrowed pajamas. Her cheeks were hollow for a child her age, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. Evelyn returned with a tray bearing vegetable soup and fresh bread. The delicious aroma made Chloe shift excitedly in bed, but she waited politely for the housekeeper to arrange everything. "Eat slowly," Evelyn instructed gently. "Your stomach needs to get used to food again." While the girl ate, Ethan and Evelyn exchanged meaningful looks. There was so much more to this story than they could possibly fathom, and Chloe's words about the bad father echoed with a disturbing clang in Ethan's mind. After finishing her soup, Chloe started to show signs of exhaustion, but she still insisted on seeing the babies. "Just a quick peek," Ethan conceded. "Then you need to rest." He helped her stand, once again struck by how light she was, and guided her to the room next door. Mrs. Davies was dozing in an armchair while the twins slept peacefully in their cribs. Chloe tiptoed to each one, checking on them with a level of care that broke Ethan's heart. Satisfied they were safe and warm, she finally allowed herself to be led back to her bed. "Sleep now," Ethan said softly, tucking the blankets around her. "We'll talk more tomorrow." Chloe clutched his hand as he started to move away. "Promise you won't let him find us?" she asked, her green eyes pleading. "I promise," Ethan replied firmly, though he wasn't entirely sure who he was making the promise against. "You're under my protection now." The girl seemed to find solace in his words, her eyes finally closing as exhaustion claimed her. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into a deep, steady rhythm. Ethan remained by her bed for a few more moments, watching her fitful sleep. Evelyn approached quietly, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You need to rest, too," she whispered. "I can't stop thinking about what these children have been through." "Evelyn," he answered, his voice thick with concern. "Who could make a child run away on a night like this, with 2 babies?" "We'll learn more tomorrow," the housekeeper said wisely. "For now, they're safe." Ethan nodded, but didn't move. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep. His instincts told him that pulling them from the snow was only the very beginning of a much larger, darker story. As he watched Chloe sleep, He made a silent vow. He would do everything in his power to protect these 3 children, no matter what it cost. The snow was still falling outside, but inside the Hayes estate, 3 small lives were beginning to find a new path toward hope. Sam Decker was not the kind of private investigator you found in the phone book. His discreet office on the 3rd floor of an old building in downtown Chicago didn't even have a sign on the door, which was precisely why Ethan had chosen him. "I need absolute discretion on this case," Ethan explained, watching the detective study the photos of the children that Evelyn had taken during breakfast. "The fewer people who know, the better." Sam nodded, his experienced eyes lingering on every detail in the images. At 55, he had the kind of face that blended into any crowd, his greatest professional asset. "Are you sure you don't want to involve the authorities?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "Not yet," Ethan replied, his jaw tight. "I have a feeling we need to understand this story better first. Chloe, she panics just mentioning her father. What about the mother? She refuses to talk about it. Actually, she barely speaks. She spends all her time with the twins, like she's afraid they'll disappear at any moment." Sam jotted notes in a worn-out spiral notebook. "I'll need more information. Any detail might be helpful." "The twins are about 6 months old, Olivia and Noah," Ethan informed him. "Chloe is 6. I found all 3 of them in Lincoln Park 3 days ago. She was shielding the babies from the cold with her own body." The detective raised his eyebrows, impressed. "A little girl and 2 babies. Someone has to be looking for them." "That's exactly what worries me," Ethan muttered. Back at the estate, Ethan found Evelyn supervising Chloe as she played with the twins in the living room. The girl sat on the Persian rug, humming softly to Olivia, while Noah slept in his new stroller. Over the past 3 days, Ethan had practically bought out a department store, acquiring everything the children could possibly need: clothes, toys, diapers, strollers. The Hayes estate, once so formal and quiet, now resembled a luxury daycare. "Hi there, little one," he smiled, sitting on the rug beside her. "How are our babies today?" Chloe looked up, a small, genuine smile gracing her face. It was the first one Ethan had seen since finding her. "Emma likes music," she said softly. "Mama used to sing to them." Ethan exchanged a quick look with Evelyn. It was the first time Chloe had voluntarily mentioned her mother. "Did your mom sing to you a lot?" he asked casually, trying not to sound too eager and scare her off. Chloe's smile vanished. She hugged Olivia tighter, her green eyes suddenly welling with tears. She can't sing anymore," she whispered as 2 large tears traced paths down her cheeks. Ethan felt his heart clench. He gently placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "It's okay, Chloe. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." But something inside her seemed to have broken. Still cradling Olivia, Chloe began to speak, her voice fractured by sobs. She sang every night, even when he shouted for her to stop. Said it was too much noise and that the babies had to learn to sleep in silence. Evelyn quietly approached, taking Olivia from Chloe's arms. The girl didn't resist, allowing Ethan to pull her into a hug as she cried. He got so mad, she continued through her sobs. Said she spoiled us too much, that we needed to be strong, and that crying was for the weak. Ethan felt a cold fury rise in his chest. Who was this man who had inflicted such trauma on a child? "Chloe," he said gently, when her sobs began to subside, "you're the strongest girl I've ever met. You took care of your baby siblings all by yourself, protected them from the cold. And that's not weak." She looked up at him, surprised. "Really?" "Absolutely," he smiled, wiping away her tears. "And now you're not alone anymore. I'm going to take care of you." The words came out without thought, but as soon as he said them, Ethan knew they were true. In 3 short days, these children had awakened feelings in him he never knew he possessed. "Promise?" Chloe asked, her green eyes locked on his. "I promise," he answered firmly. That night, after the children were asleep, Ethan remained in his office, lost in thought. Evelyn came in with a cup of tea. "Do you really intend to keep them?" she asked, setting the cup on his desk. "At least temporarily," he replied, "until we know more about the situation. I can't just hand them over to the system without knowing what happened, Evelyn. There's something very wrong here." The housekeeper nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "You know, in all these years working for you, I've never seen you so alive." Ethan raised his eyebrows, surprised. "What do you mean? It used to be just business, meetings, work. Now, there's life in this house, children's laughter, a baby's crying, and even you've been smiling more." He couldn't help but smile himself. It was true. In just 3 days, these 3 small lives had completely upended his methodical, solitary routine. His phone buzzed. It was a message from Sam. "I found something. We need to talk, first thing tomorrow." Ethan reread the message several times, a sense of unease growing in his chest. Something told him the revelations to come would change everything. Upstairs, the soft sounds of sleeping children filled the once-empty rooms of the Hayes estate. Ethan went up for his final check of the night, a habit he had already developed. Chloe was asleep, hugging the teddy bear he had bought her, her face finally serene. In their cribs nearby, Olivia and Noah slept peacefully. As he watched them, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that he would do anything to protect these children. What he didn't know was that his promise would be tested far sooner than he could ever imagine. Sam Decker's office felt even more claustrophobic on that gray morning. Ethan watched as the detective arranged a series of documents on his worn-out desk, his stomach tightening in anticipation. "What did you find?" he asked, unable to wait any longer. Sam sighed heavily before answering. "Tyler and Emily Matthews, married 8 years. He's an executive at a pharmaceutical company. She was a music teacher at an elementary school." The detective paused meaningfully. Was in the past tense. Ethan felt a chill. What happened to her? Officially, a car accident 2 months ago. A head-on collision on a deserted road. No witnesses? Sam pushed a police report towards Ethan. But there are disturbing inconsistencies in the case. Ethan scanned the document, his expression growing progressively grimmer. The body was unrecognizable. "Exactly," Sam nodded. Identification was made solely by personal items and dental records provided by the husband. And there's more. Over the last 5 years, there were 17 calls to the police at their address, all for disturbances or domestic disagreements. None resulted in an arrest. 17 calls and no one did anything? Ethan asked, incredulous. "Tyler Matthews has powerful connections," Sam explained, passing over more documents. Each incident was quickly shelved. Witnesses always changed their statements. Officers were transferred. Ethan ran his hands through his hair, trying to process the information. "And the children?" Chloe is Emily's daughter from a previous marriage. Tyler legally adopted her after the wedding. The twins were born 6 months ago. Sam hesitated before continuing. "There are records of Chloe visiting the ER twice last year. A broken arm and a concussion. The explanations were falling down the stairs and playground accident." Ethan felt bile rise in his throat. Chloe's words about the bad father now made horrifying sense. "Ethan," Sam said seriously, "Tyler Matthews is looking for them. He's already hired private investigators, offered a reward. He's using all his resources." "He won't get near those children," Ethan declared, his voice hard with determination. Back at the estate, Ethan was met with a scene that made his heart seize. Chloe was huddled in a corner of the living room, trembling, while Evelyn tried to calm her. "It was just a nightmare, sweetheart," the housekeeper said softly. "He was here," Chloe sobbed. "I saw him, taking Olivia and Noah." Ethan knelt beside her. "It was just a bad dream, little one. Look, the babies are right there, sleeping safely." Chloe threw herself into his arms, crying convulsively. "Don't let him take them, Ethan, please." Shh, it's okay." He hugged her tight. "No one will take you away from here." Later, after Chloe had finally drifted back to sleep, Ethan called a meeting with his security team. The Hayes estate was already well protected, but he wanted more. "I want cameras covering every inch of the perimeter," he instructed. "Guards round the clock, strict checks on anyone entering or leaving, and I need a team dedicated solely to the children's safety." "Yes, Mr. Hayes," the head of security nodded. "We'll start installations right away." In the following days, Ethan reorganized his entire life around the children. He moved his office to the estate, delegated meetings, and focused only on the most essential business. Every spare moment was dedicated to Chloe and the twins. Evelyn watched in amazement as her employer transformed. The young, workaholic billionaire had become an almost obsessively devoted father. She often found him in the twins' room late at night, rocking Olivia or Noah, or reading stories to Chloe until she fell asleep. One morning, as Evelyn was preparing bottles for the twins, she heard laughter coming from the garden. Peeking through the kitchen window, she saw Ethan running across the lawn with Chloe on his shoulders, both of them laughing hysterically. It was the first time she had heard the girl laugh with such abandon. "Higher, Ethan!" Chloe shouted, her arms spread out like wings. "Hold on tight, Princess," he responded, spinning around carefully. Evelyn discreetly wiped away a tear. The estate, once so silent and formal, was now overflowing with life and love. The twins were thriving too. Olivia, the more outgoing one, now smiled at everyone and was attempting to crawl across the living room rug. Noah, quieter, melted whenever Ethan picked him up to make funny faces. "They seem happier," Chloe commented one evening, watching the twins play in their playpen. "What about you, Chloe?" Ethan asked gently. "Are you happy here?" She looked up at him, her big green eyes shining. "I've never been so happy," she answered with a sincerity that was startling for her age. "Here, no one yells. No one hurts." Ethan felt his heart both break and mend at the same time. He pulled her into a tight embrace, silently vowing that no one would ever hurt this child again. But not all moments were happy. Chloe's nightmares persisted, growing more intense. One particularly bad night, she woke up screaming so loudly she startled the twins. "Mommy!" she called out between sobs. "Don't let him do that, Mommy." Ethan rushed to her room to find her drenched in sweat, her eyes wide with terror. "Chloe, wake up. It's just a dream," he shook her gently. She clung to his arms with surprising strength. "He pushed her, Ethan. I saw him. He pushed her down the stairs. Mommy didn't fall on her own." Ethan felt his blood run cold. "What are you talking about, little one?" But Chloe was already sobbing uncontrollably, unable to continue. Ethan rocked her until she drifted back to sleep, his mind reeling from the terrible implication of her words. Early the next morning, he called Sam. "I need you to investigate something specific," he said as soon as the detective answered. "Was there any household accident involving Emily Matthews before the car accident?" "Let me check," Sam replied. There was a pause and the rustling of papers. "Yes, 3 months before the fatal crash. She was hospitalized after a fall down the stairs. Broken ribs, severe concussion." "My God," Ethan muttered. Chloe saw everything. "Ethan," Sam's voice turned grave. "There's one more thing you need to know. Tyler Matthews just hired 2 more private investigators. One of them has a reputation for using unconventional methods." Ethan's worry intensified exponentially. That same afternoon, he convened a meeting with his lawyers. "I want to file for temporary custody," he announced, "and I need protective measures for the children." Mr. Hayes, one of the lawyers, began hesitantly. "You have no legal tie to these children. It will be difficult to justify." "Then find a way," Ethan slammed the table. "Those kids will not go back to Tyler Matthews. Not while I'm alive." While the lawyers discussed strategies, Ethan received a message from Evelyn. "Chloe is asking for you. She drew something she wants to show you." In the children's room, Chloe waited, holding a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of 5 stick figures, 3 small ones and 2 large ones. "It's us," she explained shyly. "Me, Olivia, Noah, you, and Evelyn. A family." Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. He picked Chloe up and hugged her tight. "Yes, little one," he whispered. "We're a family." Evelyn, rocking Olivia on the other side of the room, smiled through her own tears. The moment was interrupted by the vibration of Ethan's phone. It was Sam again. "We need to talk. Urgent." Tyler Matthews was seen in Chicago. Ethan looked at Chloe, still clinging to him, proudly showing him where she'd drawn the twins. Then at Olivia in Evelyn's arms, and Noah peacefully asleep in his crib. A family he would protect at any cost. The storm was approaching, but he was ready to face it. "No one will hurt you," he murmured, more to himself than to the children. "Never again." What he didn't know was that Tyler Matthews was closer than he imagined, and that the true test of his promise was about to begin. The black and white photo on Ethan's computer screen showed a tall, elegant man leaving a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Tyler Matthews had the kind of face that inspired trust at first glance, and that was precisely what made him even more dangerous. "It was taken yesterday," Sam said over the phone. "He's staying at the Four Seasons in an executive suite. He's been making lots of calls, meeting people in expensive restaurants. He's moving large sums of money. Were you able to find out where that money is going?" "Not yet, but—" Sam hesitated. "There's something off about his finances. For someone in his position, he's taking very risky steps. It looks desperate." Ethan hung up, thoughtful. From his office window, he could see Chloe playing in the garden with Evelyn and the twins. The girl was more relaxed these days, even starting to smile more. The idea that this peace might be shattered made his stomach clench. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Hayes, one of the guards, spotted a suspicious car driving around the block for the 3rd time today. "Did they photograph the plate?" "Yes, sir. We've already sent it in for checking." Ethan immediately activated the protocol he'd established. Within minutes, Evelyn had brought the children inside, and external security was reinforced. Later, during dinner, Chloe was unusually quiet, her green eyes repeatedly darting to the windows, even though the heavy curtains were drawn. "Everything all right, little one?" Ethan asked gently. "I saw a man today," she whispered, "when I was in the garden, on the other side of the street." Ethan felt his heart race. What did he look like? I couldn't see clearly, but tears began to well in her eyes. He was wearing a dark blue suit. Like your father's?" Evelyn finished gently. Chloe nodded, trembling. "He always wore suits like that. Said he had to look important so people would trust him." Ethan and Evelyn exchanged worried looks. It was the first time Chloe had spoken so directly about Tyler. Chloe continued, her voice almost inaudible. "He made Mommy cry a lot, always asking for more money. Said those were the last bad men he would pay." "Bad men?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "They used to come to the house sometimes, late at night." Chloe wrapped her arms around herself. "They talked loud, wanted money. Daddy got different when they came. Really scared." The pieces started to click into place in Ethan's mind. "Sam," he muttered to himself. "I need to talk to Sam." Later, after putting the children to bed, a longer endeavor than usual as Chloe insisted on repeatedly checking that all the windows were locked, Ethan met with the detective in his office. "Loan shark," Sam confirmed, spreading documents over the mahogany desk. "And we're not talking about small neighborhood lenders. Tyler Matthews is involved with big, dangerous people." "How much?" "From what I've tracked so far, over $15 million. It started with horse racing bets, then roulette, high-stakes poker. When the losses got too big, he started borrowing to cover them. One hole covering another, getting deeper and deeper." "And Emily? How does she fit in?" "From what I found, she was a successful music teacher. She had a considerable inheritance from her family. Property, stocks, treasury bonds, about $5 million. Sam pushed more documents toward Ethan. In the last 2 years, all of it was transferred to various accounts, some offshore, others under shell companies. The money just vanished. "My God," Ethan muttered. "There's more," Sam went on. "I found records of a life insurance policy in her name, high value, sole beneficiary, Tyler Matthews." Ethan felt a chill. "The car accident wasn't enough," Sam finished. "The debts were bigger. And now, well, the twins have a considerable trust fund left by their maternal grandparents. It's only accessible when they turn 21, but with legal custody—" "He wants to use the children's money," Ethan concluded, disgusted. A sharp scream cut through the night. "Ethan! Ethan!" He ran to Chloe's room, taking the stairs 2 at a time. The girl was in the middle of another violent nightmare, tossing on the silk sheets. Evelyn was already there, trying to calm her. "Don't let them take it," Chloe cried, her words broken by sobs. "The money belongs to the babies. Mommy said it was the babies. She promised Grandpa." Ethan scooped her up, feeling her trembling little body. "Shh, it's all right. No one's taking anything from you." Gradually, through sobs and tremors, the full story began to emerge. On the night they fled, Chloe had overheard a terrible argument between Tyler and some men. They wanted more money, she sobbed, clinging to Ethan's shirt. "Daddy said he'd use the baby's money, but Mommy... "What happened, sweetheart?" Evelyn asked gently, stroking her hair. "Mommy said no, that it was the last thing Grandpa and Grandma left. She took us in the middle of the night, said we were going to a safe place. She was going to report Daddy." Chloe trembled even more. "But Daddy woke up. He was so angry. I've never seen him so angry. Mommy handed me the babies, told me to run, and I ran. So far. It was so cold, but I couldn't stop." Ethan felt a cold fury fill his chest. Emily had given her life to protect her children, and now Tyler wanted to use every last cent that belonged to them. "Sam," he said on the phone later, his voice determined, "I want everything. Every record, every transaction, every suspicious conversation. We'll expose Tyler Matthews for who he really is." "I'm on it," the detective replied. "But Ethan, be careful. Desperate men are dangerous." The next morning, Ethan called his legal team together. "I want full custody of these children," he announced, "and we're going to do this the right way, with proof, with documents, with everything we've got. We'll expose every penny he stole, every veiled threat, every betrayal of trust." "It'll be a tough battle," one of the lawyers cautioned. "He's the legal father. He's a monster who destroyed a family for money," Ethan cut in, "and he won't lay a finger on those kids while I'm alive." While the lawyers discussed strategies, Ethan glanced out the window. In the garden, guarded by security, Chloe was playing with the twins. Olivia was attempting her first steps, supported by her sister's hands, while Noah clapped excitedly. "You're my family now," Ethan murmured, "and I protect my family." The buzz of an incoming message pulled him back to reality. It was Sam. Suspicious movement near the estate. "I think he's preparing to do something. My contacts say he has a meeting tonight with some dangerous men." Seems desperate. Ethan clenched his fists. The storm was on its way, but he was ready. Tyler Matthews had no idea who he was dealing with. "Bring it on," he muttered. "I'm waiting." The black and white photo on Ethan's computer screen showed a tall, elegant man leaving a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Tyler Matthews had the kind of face that inspired immediate trust. Light eyes, a practiced smile, graying hair at the temples that gave him an air of distinction. The kind of man you'd trust with your money without a second thought. And that was exactly what made him so dangerous. Ethan studied the image intently, searching the handsome features for any hint of the monster Chloe feared so much. How could someone with such a respectable facade hide such cruelty? "It was taken yesterday at 2:37 p.m., Sam said over the phone. He's in the Four Seasons Executive Suite on the 18th floor. He's been making dozens of calls a day, meeting people in expensive restaurants like Alinea and Oriole. He's moving large amounts of money through different accounts. How much exactly? In the last 3 days, over $2 million. The money goes in and out almost immediately, bouncing between offshore accounts. It's like he's... Sam hesitated, searching for the right words. Covering his tracks, Ethan suggested. Exactly. And one more thing. For someone in his position, CEO of a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, declared annual salary around $700,000. He's making outrageously risky deals. He sold company shares way below market value, mortgaged properties. Looks desperate. Ethan hung up, thoughtful, swiveling his chair to look through the floor-to-ceiling window. In the estate's garden below, protected by reinforced security, a tender scene was unfolding. Chloe was sitting on a blanket, helping Olivia balance in her first attempts at standing. Evelyn, a few feet away, held Noah, who was clapping excitedly for his sister. In recent weeks, the girl had begun to open up like a flower in the sun. Her smiles, once so rare, now lit up the estate multiple times a day. She had even started singing to the twins as her mother once had, gentle lullabies that made Ethan pause in the hallway to listen, his heart tight with emotion. The intercom on his desk rang, shattering the moment of peace. "Mr. Hayes, Thompson from Alpha Team here. We've spotted a black SUV with tinted windows and New Jersey plates circling the block for the 3rd time today." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. "Did you get the license plate?" "Yes, sir. We already sent it for verification. According to protocol, we've activated a yellow alert." "Good. Keep me informed of any movement." Ethan pressed another button on the intercom. "Evelyn, please bring the children inside now." Through the window, he watched the housekeeper move with well-practiced efficiency. In under a minute, she had gathered the toys and ushered the children into the safety of the house. Chloe looked up towards Ethan's window with a worried expression, as if she sensed something was wrong. The Hayes estate security was already impressive, but in the last few weeks it had become a veritable fortress. State-of-the-art cameras covered every inch of the perimeter. Motion sensors monitored the grounds around the clock, and an elite team of ex-military personnel worked in shifts. Ethan had hired child security specialists, installed protocols for different threat levels, and even prepared a safe room in the basement, fully equipped to shelter the children for weeks if necessary. Some might call it paranoia, but for him, no precaution was too great when it came to protecting his family. His family. It was strange how that idea had become so natural in such a short time. These 3 children, whom fate had placed in his path on a snowy winter's night, were now the center of his world. The rest of the afternoon passed in apparent normalcy, but Ethan could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. During dinner, served earlier than usual for safety, Chloe was unusually quiet, her eyes frequently darting to the curtained windows. "Everything all right, little one?" Ethan asked gently, noticing she'd barely touched her favorite pasta. Chloe put down her fork, biting her lower lip, a gesture Ethan now knew was a sign of anxiety. "I saw a man today," she finally whispered, "when I was in the garden with Evelyn and the babies, on the other side of the street." Ethan felt his heart race but kept his voice calm. "What did he look like?" "I couldn't see him well, but..." Tears began to stream down her pale cheeks. "He was wearing a navy blue suit with thin stripes. He said he always had to look important so people would trust him when he asked." She stopped abruptly, as if she'd said too much. Ethan and Evelyn exchanged worried glances. It was the first time Chloe had spoken so directly about Tyler and his habits. Chloe continued after a few moments, her voice almost inaudible. "He made Mommy cry a lot, always asked for more money, said these were the last bad men he'd pay, then everything would be fine. But it never was." "Bad men?" Ethan asked cautiously, his heart in his throat. "They used to come to our house sometimes, late at night." Chloe hugged her arms around herself as if she were cold. They talked loudly, wanted money. Daddy would act differently when they came. Really scared. Once he broke all the vases in the living room after they left. Ethan's mind was racing, connecting the dots. Sam, he murmured to himself. I need to talk to Sam. After putting the children to bed, a longer process than usual as Chloe kept asking to check if all the windows were locked, Ethan met the detective in his secure basement office. Lone shark, Sam confirmed as Ethan relayed what Chloe had said. The detective spread various documents over the mahogany table, and not small-time lenders. Tyler Matthews is in deep with big, dangerous players. How much? From what I've tracked, more than $15 million. It started with horse racing bets, then roulette, high-stakes poker. When it got too big, he began borrowing to cover the debts. One hole covering another, deeper and deeper. And Emily? How does she fit in? Sam pulled out a separate folder. Emily Bennett Matthews. Studied music at Juilliard, a respected teacher. Came from a traditional Boston family. She had a considerable inheritance. Properties, stocks, treasury bonds, around $5 million. Let me guess, Ethan interrupted, his voice bitter. Tyler saw her as a life raft. Exactly. The marriage was quick, less than 6 months after they met. For the first few years, everything seemed perfect. He legally adopted Chloe. They were seen at charity events, looked like the ideal couple. Sam passed more documents. But over the last 2 years, her entire inheritance was siphoned into different accounts. Some offshore, some under shell companies. The money simply disappeared. My God, Ethan muttered, running his hands through his hair. There's more, Sam said gravely. I found a life insurance policy in her name. $5 million. Sole beneficiary? Tyler Matthews. It was taken out 3 months before the accident. Ethan felt a shiver down his spine. The car accident wasn't enough, Sam finished. The debts were too large. Now the twins have a trust fund set up by their grandparents. $10 million. Only accessible when they turn 21, but if he has legal custody? He wants to use the children's money, Ethan said, feeling nauseated. A piercing scream cut through the night. Ethan! Ethan! He raced to Chloe's room, taking the steps 2 at a time. She was in the midst of another violent nightmare, thrashing around. Evelyn was already there, trying to calm her. Don't let them take it, Chloe shouted, her words broken by sobs. It's the baby money. Mommy said it belonged to the babies. She promised Grandpa. Ethan scooped her up, feeling her trembling. Shh. It's all right. No one's taking anything from you, I promise. Slowly, amid sobs, the full story started to emerge. On the night they ran away, Chloe woke to angry voices downstairs. Hiding at the top of the stairs, she heard a terrible argument between Tyler and some men. They wanted more money, she sobbed, clinging to Ethan's shirt. A lot of money. Daddy said he'd take the baby's money, that he had no choice, but Mommy? Her voice failed. What happened, dear? Evelyn asked softly, stroking her hair. Mommy said no, that it was the last thing Grandpa and Grandma left for the baby's future. Chloe shook more. She took us in the middle of the night, packed some clothes in a bag, grabbed important documents from the safe, said we were going someplace safe, that she'd report Daddy. Ethan felt his heart seize. But he woke up? Chloe nodded, hiding her face in his chest. He was so mad. I'd never seen him like that. Mommy gave me the babies, told me to run, not to stop. I ran and ran. It was so cold, but I couldn't stop. Ethan held her tighter, tears threatening to fall. Emily had given her life to protect her children, and now Tyler wanted to take every last cent that was theirs. After Chloe finally fell asleep again, this time in Ethan's room at her insistence, he returned to his office. The rage he felt was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, cold, calculating, relentless. Sam, he said on the phone, his voice deadly calm. I want everything, every record, every transaction, every suspicious conversation. We're going to expose Tyler Matthews for who he really is, a gambling addict who destroyed his own family for money. I'm on it, the detective replied. I have contacts in the Gaming Commission who can help. But Ethan, be careful. Desperate men are the most dangerous, and Tyler Matthews is cornered. Early the next morning, before sunrise, Ethan assembled his legal team in the estate's library. The smell of strong coffee filled the room as he laid out his strategy. I want permanent custody of these children, he declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. And we'll do it the right way. Proof, documents, everything we can gather. We'll lay bare every cent he diverted, every threat he made, every betrayal of trust. It'll be difficult, said Olivia Wilson, his lead attorney. He's their legal father, has a solid public image, powerful connections. He's a monster who ruined a family for money, Ethan cut in. A compulsive gambler who wasted his wife's inheritance, faked a life insurance claim, and now wants to steal his own children's future. And he won't lay a finger on them while I'm alive. The determination in his voice silenced the room. For a few moments, only the ticking of the old clock above the fireplace could be heard. Where do we start? Olivia finally asked, opening her laptop. With the financial records, Ethan replied. I want a full audit of his personal accounts, business accounts, offshores. Sam already has some of the data. I also want Emily's accident investigated. Something doesn't add up. And about the children's short-term safety? Another lawyer asked. He still has legal rights as a father. He might try a forced visitation. I've considered that, Ethan said. The estate is basically a fortress now. No one gets in or out without clearance. Plus, he paused significantly, we'll file a protective order today. I have enough evidence of his violent history to justify it. As the lawyers debated strategies, Ethan moved to the window. In the garden below, watched by vigilant security, Chloe had just stepped out for her morning walk with Evelyn and the twins. Olivia was trying to take her first steps, supported by her sister, while Noah clapped excitedly in his stroller. You're my family now, Ethan murmured, pressing his hand against the bulletproof glass. And I protect my family. The ping of an incoming message brought him back to reality. It was Sam. Suspicious activity near the estate. Looks like he's preparing to do something. My contacts say he's meeting some dangerous men tonight. Seems desperate. Ethan clenched his fists, adrenaline rushing through his veins. The storm was coming, but he was ready. Tyler Matthews had picked the wrong battle this time. Let it come, he murmured, watching his family in the garden. I'm waiting. The Hayes Estate security system failed at 11:47 p.m. on a rainy Thursday. It wasn't an ordinary failure. It was a coordinated, professional attack that temporarily knocked out power in the East Wing. In a matter of seconds, the backup cameras kicked in, but those brief moments of darkness were enough. Ethan was in his office when the first alarm blared. Before he could reach for the phone, Evelyn burst through the door. He's here, she said, pale. At the side entrance, by the kitchen. The children are in the safe room, just like we practiced. Chloe is scared, but she's keeping the twins calm. Ethan nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. Call the police. Code red. Tyler Matthews was not alone. Through the still functional cameras, Ethan could see 3 men with him, professionals, judging by their stance and coordinated movements. One of them carried a briefcase that made Ethan's stomach churn. Mr. Hayes, Tyler's voice echoed through the entry hall, falsely cordial. What an impressive mansion, though I must say your security leaves something to be desired. Ethan descended the stairs slowly, each step calculated. For the first time, he stood face to face with the man who had ruined so many lives. Matthews, he replied, his voice icy. Breaking and entering is a crime. Tyler smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His impeccable navy suit contrasted sharply with the implied violence of the scene. A crime? Interesting you'd mention that. You know what else is a crime? Kidnapping. My children are here, Hayes. I've come to take them. Your children? Ethan gave a humorless laugh. The ones you're trying to rob? How much was that trust fund again? 10 million? Tyler's smile faltered briefly. You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything, Matthews. The gambling, the debts, the loan sharks. I even know about Emily's life insurance. Very convenient, that accident, huh? Watch your words, Tyler hissed, his veneer of civility cracking. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Oh, I have a pretty good idea. Ethan took a step forward. I can imagine exactly what happened that night. Emily found out about your plan for the twins' money, right? She decided to run, protect the children. But you couldn't allow that. Shut up, Tyler exploded, taking a step closer. His hired men tensed, ready to fight. Where are my children? Safe, far from you. Sirens started wailing in the distance. Tyler checked his watch, visibly nervous. Last chance, Hayes. Give me the kids, and no one gets hurt. You won't lay a hand on them, Ethan declared, his voice like steel. Not ever again. It was as if a switch had been flipped. Tyler made a quick gesture, and his men advanced. Ethan was prepared. Years of martial arts training hadn't been for nothing. The first man went down with a precise blow, but the other two were more experienced. The fight spilled into the hall, furniture knocked over, glass shattering. At some point, Ethan heard Evelyn shouting that the police were on their way. Tyler remained on the sidelines, watching the chaos with a twisted smile. One of the men cornered Ethan against the wall, but managing billions had taught Ethan always to have a plan B. With a swift move, he pressed the panic button hidden in the baseboard. Security sprinklers burst to life, drenching everyone within seconds. The fog system wasn't water. It was a non-lethal compound designed for situations like this. Within minutes, the attackers started coughing, their coordination failing. "Daddy?" The scream cut through the chaos like a knife. Chloe stood at the top of the stairs, having somehow escaped the safe room. Her green eyes were wide with terror. "Chloe!" Tyler shouted, a bizarre mix of triumph and desperation in his voice. "Come to Daddy! Let's go get your siblings and—" "No!" she screamed, backing away. "You hurt Mommy! You want to hurt the babies?" Your mother was weak, Tyler growled, his mask now fully dropped. She was going to ruin everything. The money is mine. All of it's mine. At that moment, the mansion door burst open. A SWAT team flooded the room, weapons raised. Tyler and his men were quickly subdued, despite their incoherent protests about parental rights and private property. Ethan ran upstairs, scooping Chloe into his arms. She was shaking, but her eyes never left the sight of her father being handcuffed. "Is it over?" she whispered. "It's over, little one." Ethan hugged her tight. "He'll never hurt you again." Evelyn appeared, carrying the twins. Miraculously, they'd slept through the whole ordeal. "The police want to talk to you," she said gently, "and the lawyers are on their way." Ethan nodded, still holding Chloe. Downstairs, he could hear Tyler screaming threats as he was taken away. "They're my children! My money! You'll regret this, Hayes." Chloe buried her face in Ethan's neck, her small hands gripping his soaked shirt. "Don't let him come back," she begged. "Never again," Ethan promised, kissing the top of her head. "You're my family now, and I protect my family." The next hours were a whirlwind of statements, police reports, and consultations with lawyers. The estate became a crime scene as investigators collected evidence of the break-in and the fight. "This will help with the custody battle," Olivia, Ethan's chief lawyer, remarked as she watched the police. "Breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, assault." He dug his own grave. Ethan just nodded, his mind already on the next day. The physical battle was over, but the legal war had only just begun, and he was ready to fight with everything he had. In the children's room, now guarded by 2 officers, Chloe had finally fallen asleep, clutching her teddy bear. The twins slept peacefully in their cribs, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded. "You know," Evelyn said softly, adjusting Chloe's blanket. When you brought these kids here on that snowy night, I knew our lives would change, but I never imagined how much." Ethan smiled, gazing at his improvised family. It was the best change possible. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the first lights of dawn were appearing on the horizon. A new day was beginning, and with it, a new chapter in the life of the Hayes family. But as Tyler was taken to the police station, his final words echoed like a sinister promise. "This isn't over, Hayes. Not by a long shot." The coming legal battle would be brutal, but Ethan was ready. For the first time in his life, he had something more valuable than all his money to protect. He had a family. Courtroom 7 of the Cook County Courthouse had the kind of silence that weighed on your bones. Ethan Hayes adjusted his tie for the 10th time that morning, his eyes fixed on the door where Tyler Matthews would enter. Next to him, Olivia Wilson arranged a daunting stack of documents. "Remember," she whispered, "stay calm. No matter what he says, we have the evidence on our side." Ethan nodded mechanically, his mind wandering back to the scene he had left at the estate hours earlier. Chloe, pale in her new blue dress, had refused to let go of his hand until the very last moment. "You'll come back, right?" she had asked, her green eyes filled with fear. "Promise?" "I always come back for you guys, little one," he promised, kissing her forehead. "Evelyn will be with you and the twins the whole time." Now, seated in the austere courtroom, that promise weighed on him like lead. The side door opened, and Tyler Matthews entered, escorted by his lawyers. Even in handcuffs, he maintained that aura of studied dignity that had fooled so many people for so long. His eyes met Ethan's for a moment, cold as ice. "All rise," announced the officer. "Court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Thompson presiding." Judge Thompson was known for her sharp mind and lack of patience for legal theatrics. Her experienced eyes swept over the courtroom from behind reading glasses. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to make one thing clear. This is not a media circus. We're here to determine the best interests of 3 minor children." "Proceed, Ms. Wilson." Olivia rose gracefully. "Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence that Tyler Matthews is a real danger to his children. Not only the violent events of last week, when he invaded Mr. Hayes's property with armed men, but a consistent history of abusive and irresponsible behavior." She began laying out evidence methodically. Financial records showing Emily's inheritance was siphoned off, police reports on the 17 domestic disturbance calls, neighbor testimonies, suspicious medical records. "But the gravest point, Your Honor," Olivia continued, "is Mr. Matthews's attempt to illegally access the twins' trust fund, $10 million that he intended to use to pay gambling debts to criminal organizations." Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat as his lawyers objected. The judge silenced them with a gesture. "Mr. Hayes," she turned to Ethan, "you have no legal connection to these children. Why should we consider your request for custody?" Ethan stood, feeling the weight of that question. It was something he'd asked himself many times in recent weeks. "Your Honor, I found 3 children abandoned on a winter night. A 6-year-old girl using her own body to shield 2 babies from the cold. Since then, I've provided not just their material needs, but something they've never had before, a safe, loving home." "Liar!" Tyler suddenly burst out. "He kidnapped my children. He's using his money to steal my family." "Mr. Matthews," the judge warned sternly, "one more outburst and you'll be removed from the courtroom." The morning dragged on in a series of witnesses and evidence. Sam Decker presented his findings on Tyler's activities. Financial experts detailed the money trail. A child psychologist spoke about Chloe's evident trauma. During the lunch break, Ethan found Evelyn waiting in the corridor. "How are they?" he asked immediately. "The twins are fine, but Chloe—" Evelyn hesitated. She barely touched breakfast. "She keeps asking if you're coming back, if her father will take her away." Ethan felt his heart tighten. "And you? How are you holding up?" Evelyn lowered her gaze, a soft blush tinting her cheeks. "Ethan, She took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you, something I've been holding in for a long time." Ethan's heart quickened. There was something in her voice, in how her fingers nervously toyed with her bag strap. "Evelyn, Mr. Hayes," Olivia interrupted, appearing in the corridor. "They're calling us back in." The moment shattered like glass. Evelyn stepped back, composing herself quickly. "We'll talk later," she murmured, turning to leave, but Ethan had just enough time to see the tears she tried to hide. Back in the courtroom, it was the defense's turn. Tyler's lawyers painted a very different picture. A devoted father, a respectable businessman who had his family stolen by an eccentric billionaire. Mr. Hayes is single, a workaholic with no experience raising children, the lead defense attorney argued. What kind of family environment can he offer? Meanwhile, Mr. Matthews is the legal father, has a traditional home. "A home where children were terrorized," Olivia countered. "Where a 6-year-old girl regularly witnessed domestic violence. Where a mother was possibly murdered." The temperature in the room seemed to drop a few degrees. Judge Thompson leaned forward. "Ms. Wilson, that's an extremely serious accusation. And we have evidence to support it, Your Honor," Olivia signaled for an assistant to bring another folder. "We'd like to call our next witness, Dr. Rachel Sullivan, a trauma specialist who's been treating Chloe for the past few weeks." Dr. Sullivan was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a calm voice. She detailed Chloe's nightmares, her troubling drawings, and finally, the revelations about the night Emily fell down the stairs. "The child shows all the classic signs of post-traumatic stress disorder," she explained. "But even more significant is the pattern of her fears. Chloe isn't just afraid of punishment. She has a specific fear that the bad men will come take the babies. In our sessions, she repeatedly mentions that Daddy owes money to dangerous people, and that Mommy didn't let him take the baby's money." Tyler Matthews looked as if he'd aged 10 years during the testimony. His lawyers whispered frantically among themselves. Judge Thompson removed her glasses, massaging the bridge of her nose. "Dr. Sullivan, in your professional opinion, what would be the impact of removing the children from their current environment?" "It would be devastating, Your Honor." For the first time since the initial trauma, Chloe feels safe. The twins are forming healthy attachment bonds. Mr. Hayes and his housekeeper, Evelyn Reed, have provided exactly what these children needed most: stability, safety, and unconditional love. The afternoon wore on with more witnesses, more evidence. To Ethan, each minute felt like an eternity, thinking of Chloe waiting anxiously at home. Finally, Judge Thompson announced what everyone had been waiting for. "Given the complexity of this case and the volume of evidence, I need time to review it all properly. We'll reconvene in 3 days." Ethan had barely left the courtroom when his phone rang. It was Evelyn, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you need to come home. Now." "What happened?" "It's Chloe. She had a panic attack after seeing the news on TV. She's locked herself in her room, won't talk to anyone." Ethan had never driven so fast in his life. When he arrived at the estate, he found Evelyn in the upstairs hallway, looking exhausted. "She's only asking for you," she said softly. Ethan approached the bedroom door. "Chloe?" "It's me." There was a sound of quick footsteps, and the door opened. Chloe threw herself into his arms, sobbing. "They said on TV, said he could still take us away." "Hey, look at me!" Ethan held her by the shoulders. "No one is taking you, I promised, remember?" But you're not really our dad?" she sobbed. "What if the judge sends us away? What if—" "Chloe," Ethan knelt down to her eye level. "Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, caring, and protection. And I love you 3 more than anything in this world." Evelyn, watching from the doorway, felt her heart tighten. There was so much truth in those words, so much love in that scene. The same love she'd been silently carrying for years. Later, after he finally calmed Chloe and got her to sleep, Ethan found Evelyn in the library. She stood by the window, gazing out into the night. "You were about to tell me something today," he reminded her gently, in court. Evelyn turned slowly, silent tears running down her face. "This isn't the right time," she tried to smile. "You have so much on your plate, sir." "Evelyn," Ethan stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Please?" She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "I love you, Ethan. I have for years. I've watched you build your empire, admired your strength, your drive. But I've never loved you more than I do now, seeing you with these children, seeing the amazing father you've become." Ethan felt like the world had stopped spinning. How hadn't he realized it before? Evelyn had always been there, his safe harbor, his confidant, the person who kept his house running, the person helping raise his children. His children. The realization struck him like lightning. They were his children, no matter what any court said. Those 3 little lives were his family now. And Evelyn? Evelyn was part of that family too. "I've been such a fool," he murmured, touching her face gently. "A blind fool." Before he could say more, the cry of a baby sounded through the monitor. Evelyn stepped back instinctively. "Must be Olivia," she said, wiping her tears. "She always wakes up around this time." "I'll go." Ethan held her hand. "But this conversation isn't over." The following days were filled with palpable tension at the estate. The press had caught wind of the story. The single billionaire fighting for custody of 3 children against a potentially criminal father. Photographers crowded outside the gates, prompting Ethan to hire extra security. On the morning of the final hearing, Chloe again refused to let go of Ethan. "Take us with you," she begged. "Please." "I can't, little one, but I promise I'll be back soon." He hesitated for a moment. "And when I come back, how would you feel if Evelyn moved in permanently, as part of the family?" Chloe's eyes widened. "You and Evelyn are getting married?" Ethan smiled. "Maybe." "What do you think?" "She's already like a mom," Chloe said simply. "She just needs to be a real one." At the courthouse, the atmosphere was even more tense than on previous days. Tyler Matthews looked like he'd aged years, his arrogance replaced by an expression of defeat. Judge Thompson wasted no time on introductions. "Over the past days," she began, "I've examined every piece of evidence, every testimony, every document in this case. And one thing is clear. The children's best interest is our sole priority." She paused, glancing around the room. "Mr. Matthews, the evidence against you is substantial and disturbing. Not just recent events, but a pattern of abusive and irresponsible behavior. Your gambling debts, your ties to criminal elements, and especially your attempt to access your children's trust fund illegally are deeply concerning." Tyler sank into his seat as she continued. "Mr. Hayes, you have no legal ties to these children. Yet since you found them on that winter night, you've shown extraordinary commitment to their well-being. You provided not only their material needs, but created an environment of love, security, and stability." Ethan hardly dared to breathe, waiting for the verdict. "Therefore, this court rules full and permanent custody of Chloe, Olivia, and Noah Matthews is granted to Ethan Hayes, with social services supervision for the next 6 months. Mr. Matthews, you are prohibited from any contact with the children until you complete a gambling addiction treatment and undergo a full psychological evaluation. Moreover, the evidence related to Emily Matthews' death will be forwarded to the district attorney for proper investigation." The courtroom erupted into murmurs. Ethan felt like a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Olivia squeezed his hand, smiling. Tyler Matthews was escorted out, defeated. His final look at Ethan held no more threats, just a deep sadness for all he'd lost. Ethan barely waited for the closing procedures to finish before hurrying to his car. On the way to the estate, he called Evelyn. "It's over," he said simply. "We won." Her sigh of relief on the other end made his heart tighten. "Chloe's right here," Evelyn said, her voice choked with emotion. "She wants to talk to you." "Ethan," Chloe's small voice trembled. "Are you coming back?" "I'm coming home, little one, to our home, forever." When he reached the estate, he found his family waiting at the door. Chloe ran into his arms as Evelyn held the twins, tears of joy on her face. "We'll never have to leave again?" Chloe asked, her green eyes shining with hope. "Never again," Ethan promised, holding her tight. Then he looked at Evelyn, his heart overflowing with love. "Actually, our family is about to get bigger. If Evelyn says yes, of course." The smile that lit up her face was all the answer he needed. There, in the garden of the Hayes estate, under the afternoon sun, a new family was born, not through blood, but through choice, love, and destiny. And for Ethan, everything finally made sense. Sam Decker looked older and more tired when he walked into Ethan's office that rainy morning. The brown envelope he was carrying seemed to weigh a ton in his hands. "Are you ready to see this?" he said simply, spreading documents over the desk. Ethan picked up the first sheet, an old birth certificate, its edges yellowed with age. His heart stopped when he read the name. Robert James Hayes Matthews. "Hayes?" he whispered, incredulous. "Your uncle," Sam confirmed. "Your father's younger brother. Given up for adoption as a baby. The Matthews family adopted him when he was only 3 months old." Ethan felt the floor drop out from under him. Memories of whispered conversations between his parents, old photos hidden in a box in the attic, a name never to be mentioned. Why didn't they ever tell me? According to what I found, it was a scandal at the time. Your grandmother had an affair, got pregnant. Your grandfather insisted the baby be given up to avoid public shame. Ethan examined more documents, old photos showing a baby in his grandmother's arms, adoption papers carefully preserved, newspaper clippings. Does Tyler know? "He found out about a year ago," Sam answered. "That's when he started digging into his own past. And, Ethan, there's more." The detective pulled out another paper. A will? Your grandfather, consumed by guilt, set up a secret fund for Tyler. $5 million. He could only access it if he discovered his true identity. "And he did," Ethan said, "right when he was most desperate for money." "Exactly. But there was a catch. He'd have to publicly acknowledge his origins, take the Hayes name, which would mean a scandal for your family." "And he chose not to," Ethan concluded. Instead, he sank deeper into gambling, trying to get money elsewhere. That's when he started draining Emily's inheritance. Ethan stood up, walking to the window. Outside, Chloe played with the twins in the garden, protected by discreet guards. His niece and nephews, by blood, not only by choice. His phone rang. It was Olivia, his attorney. "Ethan, Tyler requested a meeting. Says he has a proposal." The law firm's conference room felt smaller with the tension in the air. Tyler sat on the other side of the table, looking like a shadow of the arrogant man he once was. "I'll get straight to the point," he said. "I'll give up all claims on the children, custody, visitation rights, everything. In return, I want $20 million. Ethan felt his stomach turn. "You're trying to sell your own kids?" "Don't be a hypocrite, cousin." He spat the last word like venom. "You already knew about our relationship." "I just found out," Ethan answered coldly. "Just like I know about the fund our grandfather left you." Tyler laughed bitterly. $5 million? That wouldn't even cover the interest on my debts. But $20 million? I could start over, far away from here. And the children? Chloe? The twins? They're just merchandise to you?" "They're your family," Tyler said, a flicker of genuine emotion crossing his face. "More yours than mine, apparently. The Hayes blood is stronger than I ever imagined." At that moment, Judge Thompson entered the room. After hearing the situation, she removed her glasses thoughtfully. "I have an alternative proposal," she said. "Mr. Matthews, you relinquish custody of the children in exchange for the fund your biological father left you, The original $5 million. Mr. Hayes covers your documented gambling debts upon verification. In return, you agree to enter a treatment program for addiction and stay away from the children until they, as adults, decide if they want contact. What about the Hayes name? Tyler asked. It remains a secret if you prefer, but the children have the right to learn their history when they're older. Ethan watched his uncle, because that's what Tyler was, consider the offer. He looked like he was fighting an internal battle. I need time to think, he finally said. Back at the estate, Ethan found Chloe waiting at the top of the stairs. You look sad, she said, with the acute perception of children. Just thinking, little one. He sat down next to her. Chloe, if you could choose, would you want to see your father sometimes? She tensed immediately. Is he going to take us away? No, never. But sometimes, even people who did bad things deserve a second chance, if they really change. How do you know if they really changed? The innocent question hit Ethan like a punch. How did you know, really? Evelyn found them like that, sitting on the stairs. She joined them, Olivia in her arms, while Noah crawled behind. Ethan, she said softly, whatever decision you need to make, trust your heart. You've always known what's right for these children. He looked at his improvised family, Chloe leaning on his shoulder, the twins playing at his feet, Evelyn offering her unconditional love. And then he thought of Tyler, his lost uncle, a man broken by bad choices and family secrets. His phone vibrated with a text from Tyler. I need an answer by tomorrow. My creditors won't wait any longer. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the choice he had to make. The future of his family, both chosen and by blood, depended on him now. Snow was falling gently outside the Hayes estate when Ethan made his decision. Watching the white flakes dance in the air, he couldn't help recalling another snowy night, nearly a year ago, when 3 small lives changed his destiny forever. Now it was his turn to change someone else's destiny. The decision he was about to announce would surprise everyone. Rather than simply paying off Tyler's debts or agreeing to buy him out of parental rights, Ethan had come up with a different plan, one nobody expected, especially from a man known for his ruthless efficiency in business. The law firm's conference room was silent as he began to speak. Tyler sat across the table, looking small in his ill-fitting suit. Judge Thompson observed closely, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Olivia Wilson, Ethan's attorney, wore a barely concealed expression of shock. He hadn't shared his plan with even her. I want to establish a rehabilitation fund, Ethan announced, his voice steady. Not just to cover the debts, but to ensure a complete recovery program. Treatment for gambling addiction, therapy, medical support, professional rehab, everything needed for a real second chance. Tyler, who had been staring at his hands, looked up sharply. Why? Because you're my family, Ethan said, letting the words linger. And because those children deserve to know their biological father had a chance to make amends. They deserve more than a story of abandonment and betrayal. They deserve to know that sometimes people can change, if given the right opportunity. Judge Thompson leaned forward, intrigued. Go on, Mr. Hayes. Be specific. I propose a phased agreement, Ethan explained, opening a folder in front of him. First, Tyler undergoes an intensive 1-year program at one of the best rehab clinics in the country, with all expenses covered. The fund our grandfather left, $5 million, will be held in escrow, released only after he successfully completes the program. And during that year, Tyler asked, his voice raspy, you focus exclusively on recovery. No contact with the children, no financial worries. Your documented debts will be negotiated and paid through a separate fund I'll establish. In exchange, you agree to follow the treatment strictly and accept regular evaluations. We also propose part of the fund be converted into new trust accounts for the children, managed by an independent committee, Olivia added. This would ensure their educational future and well-being, no matter what happens. And after the first year, Judge Thompson asked? If treatment is successful and psychological evaluations are positive, we'll start a gradual visitation schedule. It'll begin in a controlled environment with professionals present, then progress based on his improvement, and, crucially, based on the children's wishes. Tyler ran his hands over his face, a gesture so reminiscent of Ethan's father that it was almost painful to watch. "Why are you doing this, Ethan? You could just cut me out completely. Keep the kids, your money." "Because I saw something in Chloe's eyes the other day," Ethan replied, his voice softening. "Underneath the fear and the pain, there's a part of her that still loves the father she knew before. The one who took her out for ice cream, who taught her how to ride a bike. And the twins. They deserve the chance to know their full story one day, to understand that their father fought to become a better person." "What if I fail?" Tyler whispered, a vulnerability in his voice no one had heard before. "Then you'll have failed by trying," Ethan answered simply. "Not by giving up." Judge Thompson removed her glasses, cleaning them thoughtfully. "Mr. Matthews, what's your response to this proposal?" Tyler was silent for several minutes, his face a portrait of conflicting emotions. When he finally spoke, his voice shook. "For years, I used addiction as an excuse for my choices, my failings. It was easier to keep gambling, keep lying, than face what I'd become. But that night," he closed his eyes as if the memory physically hurt. "That night when I saw the terror in Chloe's eyes, when I realized she'd rather freeze with the babies than come back home, something broke inside me." Ethan watched his uncle wrestle with his words. It was like looking into a distorted mirror of time, seeing how small choices could lead two people of the same blood down drastically different paths. "I accept," Tyler finally said, "not for the money, not to clear my name, but because those children deserve to know their father tried to fix his mistakes." The mediation process that followed was intense and meticulous. Lawyers from both sides spent weeks structuring an agreement that protected everyone's interests, especially the children's. Judge Thompson personally oversaw every detail, ensuring all necessary safeguards were in place. At home, Ethan faced perhaps the toughest challenge, explaining the situation to Chloe. One quiet evening, after putting the twins to bed, he found her in her special room, a space Evelyn had decorated with glowing stars on the ceiling and shelves full of colorful books. "Little one," he began softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. "Remember when we talked about second chances?" Chloe nodded, hugging her favorite teddy bear, the same one Ethan had bought in their first week at the estate. "About Daddy?" "Yes. He's sick, Chloe, like people who get ill and need medicine. Your dad needs a special kind of treatment, so he won't do bad things anymore, so he can learn to control those harmful urges." "Will he get better?" she asked, her voice small but steady. "He's going to try very hard," Ethan replied, honestly, because he promised himself never to lie to her. "And if he does, maybe one day, maybe you could see him again. But only if you want to, and only if it's completely safe." Chloe was silent for a long moment, her fingers fiddling with the bear's worn ear. "You'll still be our dad, right?" "Always." Ethan hugged her tightly, feeling tears he hadn't realized he was holding back. "That never changes." The months that followed brought slow but meaningful changes. Tyler entered a high-end rehab center in Arizona, specializing in executives with addiction issues. His weekly reports, sent to both Ethan and Judge Thompson, showed gradual but steady progress. Life at the Hayes estate found a new rhythm. Evelyn, now officially Ethan's fiancée after a simple but emotional family dinner proposal, oversaw a series of renovations to make the East Wing more child-friendly. What used to be formal, seldom-used rooms became a bright, functional area with a playroom, study space, and even a small music studio, a special request from Chloe. The girl, now enrolled in a new private school not far away, showed extraordinary musical talent, clearly inherited from Emily. Her piano lessons quickly became the highlight of her week, and Ethan often found her playing for the twins, who watched in fascination. Olivia and Noah, now almost 2, thrived under the constant love and care of their new family. Olivia, as outgoing and curious as ever, had a special knack for making everyone laugh with her daily discoveries. Noah, quieter, developed a particular bond with Ethan, following him around like a little shadow and imitating his gestures with comic accuracy. One afternoon, 6 months into Tyler's treatment, Ethan received a thick letter from him. Inside the main envelope were 3 smaller ones, each bearing one of the children's names, to be opened when they were older. The main letter read, "Ethan, the treatment is showing me who I really am, and more painfully, who I could have been had I made different choices. Each therapy session peels back a layer of lies I told myself for years. The truth hurts, but it's necessary. Every day is a battle, but for the first time, I'm fighting for the right reason. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know you made the right choice that day. The children are exactly where they should be, with someone who loves them unconditionally and puts them first. Emily always said true love is proven by hard choices. You proved yours when you chose not just to protect them from me, but also to give me a chance to redeem myself. I don't know if I'm worthy of that chance, but I promise to try." In our support groups here, we learn to identify our triggers, our excuses. Mine was always feeling like I didn't belong, like I was an imposter in my own life. Finding out about my real origins, about being a Hayes, made all the lies I told myself seem justified. But now I see I was just searching for another excuse for my failures. Take care of them, Ethan. Love them the way I should have. And thank you, not for the money or the chance, but for showing Chloe that sometimes people can change. That lesson is worth more than any inheritance. Tyler. Ethan read and reread the letter several times before locking it away with the children's envelopes in his safe. One day, when they were older and ready, they would understand the whole story. A year passed, marked by small victories and big changes. Tyler completed his initial program successfully and continued regular therapy, now living in a small Arizona town where he worked as a volunteer counselor at a rehab center. The first supervised meeting with the children was meticulously planned and took place in a neutral environment with psychologists present. Chloe, now 8, showed a surprising maturity that broke everyone's hearts. "He seems different," she said afterward, as Ethan took her for ice cream, a tradition they kept for every difficult moment. "Less scary." And he cried when he realized Olivia and Noah can already walk. The twins, too young to remember the past, reacted with the natural curiosity of small children toward a gentle stranger who brought gifts and spoke softly. The visits continued, always supervised, always structured, progressing at a pace set by the children themselves. Ethan and Evelyn's wedding took place on a spring Sunday in the estate's garden, which had truly become a home. Chloe was the chief bridesmaid, wearing a sky-blue dress she had helped choose, her hair adorned with small white flowers that matched her radiant smile. The twins, dressed in white, charmed all the guests as they clumsily walked down the flower-lined aisle, scattering petals everywhere and occasionally pausing to play with them. Olivia, in particular, seemed determined to cover every inch of the path with petals, while Noah followed faithfully, trying to mimic her every move. Tyler was not invited. It was still too soon, the wounds too fresh. But he sent a gift that made Evelyn cry when she opened it. An album of old photos of Emily and the children, happy moments that deserved to be remembered and cherished. Along with it was a simple card reading, "So they never forget her smile." Ethan's study at the Hayes estate had changed dramatically over the years. The once austere walls, adorned only with diplomas and certificates, were now filled with a colorful mix of children's drawings, family photos, and abstract paintings, these last created by Olivia, who showed an early artistic talent. His antique mahogany desk, an heirloom from generations of Hayes, now shared space with a small children's table where Noah, now 6, often sat to work alongside his dad, imitating his gestures with a comic seriousness that delighted everyone in the house. One December afternoon, as snow fell softly outside, recalling that fateful night years ago, Ethan watched his family through the window. Evelyn, 6 months pregnant, was helping Olivia build what looked like the most elaborate snowman ever made in the estate's garden. The girl had inherited Emily's artistic streak, turning everything she touched into a little work of art. Chloe, now an elegant 11-year-old, taught Noah how to make perfectly round snowballs, her patience with her little brother reminiscent of those early days at the estate when she cared for the twins beyond her years. His phone buzzed. A message from Tyler. 3 years sober today. The rehab center is offering me a permanent counseling position. Would the kids like to come to my graduation? I understand if it's too soon. Ethan smiled, thinking about how far they'd come. The last supervised visit had gone well. Tyler could now spend a few hours with the children without the tension of the earlier visits. Olivia and Noah called him Uncle Ty, a solution Chloe had come up with that seemed to work for everyone. "Dad!" Chloe's voice snapped him back. She waved from the back door, snow in her dark hair. "Come build the snowman with us. Evelyn said we can use your old tie." Ethan grabbed his coat, the same one he had used to wrap 3 frightened children on a snowy night years ago. It was a bit worn now, but he could never bring himself to discard it. It reminded him how small moments could change entire lives. "I'm coming," he called, stopping only to send a quick reply to Tyler. "I'll talk to them about your graduation. And congratulations. You also deserve a second chance at happiness." Outside, the snow kept falling gently, covering the world in a white blanket of possibilities, just as it had on that night when everything changed for them. But now, instead of cold and fear, it brought only the promise of joy and precious family moments. Evelyn greeted him with a chilly kiss, her pregnant belly between them, carrying the newest addition to the Hayes family, a girl they already planned to name Emily, in honor of the woman whose sacrifice had made all of this possible. "Happy?" she asked softly, as they watched Chloe help the twins put a scarf on the most artistic snowman the estate's garden had ever seen. "More than I ever imagined," Ethan replied, hugging his wife and feeling their unborn daughter move between them. The snow was falling harder now, but no one seemed to care. Amid the laughter and play, Ethan recognized a simple truth. Sometimes the strongest families are forged not by fate, but by choice, by love, by second chances. And this was only the first page of their story.